I thought we would be one big happy family forever. But the universe had other plans.
First of all, congratulations on this film. It captures so many shades of love, regret, and forgiveness, and you both are the emotional anchors of this movie. Now, Morgan and Jonah's history is so layered. There's love, loss, and a lot that's unsaid. Talk to me about working together to find that emotional truth in those quieter moments.
You really nailed like the bulk of what our work went towards. Our off-screen work, we spent like months fine-tuning the scenes between the two of us because we don't have a lot of real estate in the movie to establish what it was like before, what it's like now, and then to set the breadcrumbs for where the audience is going to hope that it ends up later. So we wanted each of those glances, each of those moments of silence to be full of meaning and backstory.
And pretty much every single scene that we had together, we would huddle up with our director, Josh Boone, and the three of us would kind of just tear it apart in a way and be like, okay, is this the best version of the scene based on what we've already shot? Does this make sense now? Because each scene is so nuanced because we're dealing with such grief and heavy emotions, but at the same time trying to build this romance. And so you just got to be really kind of delicate with that.
I love that. That's interesting. Now, Allison, you've played so many characters wrestling with control before, but Morgan's struggle feels more internal, about she's learning to let go. What clicked for you about her journey?
So everything. Parenthood and motherhood for me specifically has been like an exercise in letting go, and control is very appealing to me, so I find that it's been a real growth opportunity for me to be a mom. And there's something that Morgan says to Claire at the end of the movie that I basically wrote from my own perspective, kind of with Josh, that was about sort of coming from a place of fear versus bravery. And I think it's true that Clara is a model of just following your instincts and following your passion, which she prescribes to her mom at the beginning of the movie. And Morgan's completely lost, has no idea what she feels passionate about, doesn't know what she wants to do, because sitting next to her, her daughter has been her passion, which is something so many people can relate to. So yeah, I feel like that was word salad slightly, but you hit the nail on the head. And I feel like as a mom, my biggest struggle has been that letting go of control. And it's beautiful to see what happens when you do.
It is, absolutely. Now, Colleen Hoover's stories always spark such emotional reactions. Dave, why do you think Regretting You connects so deeply on such a level with people?
I think it's got a little bit of everything. It's obviously got these heavy emotions that we've been discussing. It'll bring you to tears, but it's also surprisingly funny, and I give Allison a lot of credit for that. I think in pretty much every scene, she kind of attacked it in a way of like, can we find levity even in these heavier moments, which feels real. Like when you're dealing with heavy stuff, sometimes the way to get through it is finding that levity. So yeah, you're gonna laugh, you're gonna cry, you're gonna feel it all. It feels like like a Cameron Crowe movie. It's like Jerry Maguire and Almost Famous and Say Anything. It's got a little bit for everyone.
Now, without spoiling anything, there's a big reveal that happens that shifts everything, and it affects every character in this film. How did that kind of change the way that you viewed Morgan and Jonah's choices throughout the rest of the film?
I mean, it changes everything for the two of them. Like, obviously, what's so tough about this thing that they find out is that it makes the grief that they're going through so complicated, and it deprives them of like a clean kind of sadness. They deal with it very differently. Obviously, Morgan is up and down, and she goes through like kind of all the stages of grief within like several minutes span. A lot of white wine, a lot of Real Housewives. But I think that they realize that it's so hard to talk about this without spoiling.
I know.
They've been around people who were living like they might die tomorrow and doing the things that they wanted to do. And so slowly it occurs to Morgan and Jonah that they too can live that way, and why aren't they?
So I have a 10-year-old little girl, and watching this movie, especially with Morgan and Clara, made me think I was looking in a mirror in the future.
Oh, wow.
Because I feel like that is kind of the relationship that my partner and her daughter are starting to have now. So it's a little bit of homework. So I just wanted to ask you, talk to me about working with McKenna to kind of really build that real mother-daughter relationship.
McKenna is a delight. Like, she's a genuinely kind, incredibly talented person. And so yelling at her and feeling friction with her was the hardest part of doing this job. And like almost all the scenes we had together, we were butting heads. We started to like really look forward to the scenes we had where we were like even just neutral was something we were really excited about. But she's amazing. She can tap into such a depth of emotion so quickly, and just like, portray emotions that are bigger than her years and just show how experienced she is as an actor. She's incredible.
I love that. Dave, before I let you go,
Yes.
There's a lot of buzz about a Scrubs reboot.
Oh, yes.
Would you be up for returning for said reboot?
Yes. I mean, I'm in the 9th season, which not
Yes,
a lot of
you
love
are.
for the 9th season.
Hey, man, I love it.
And you know what? I understand it. It's like season 8 ended and the series was over. The final moment of the final episode of season 8 was all of them. It was like behind the scenes footage of all of them saying goodbye to each other in real life and bawling. And then they're like, we're coming back for one more.
I did not know that.
Here's what I'm gonna say. I had such a great time filming that
no
show. That was
idea.
like the first time I got to really kind of like dive into a character. And it was a network comedy, and they really let us improvise. And I was coming to
cool.
set every day with funny people, and we were just trying to make each other laugh. And so, that was very early on. I was having a good time. I don't think the fans want me back.
We want you back. We want you back.
But I'd be open to it.
Scott, it is great to see you, man. Fantastic job on this film. Regretting You is a fantastic movie. You bring so much quiet intensity to the role of Chris. But Chris seems like the picture-perfect husband. But as the story unfolds, things get really complicated. How did you approach those layers for this character of Chris without turning him into like a villain?
Yeah. Well, I think it was just lean into the good things about him, right? He was a great father, and I could lean into that, and then just knowing underneath there's complicated secrets and things that's going on.
There is absolutely complicated secrets and things going on. Now, there's this unspoken guilt that kind of lingers around Chris, even in moments when he's not saying much. Talk to me about the key to playing that emotional restraint.
Yeah, just you just got to live that reality. That's you might be doing something that could really hurt somebody else, and that weighs on you.
Now, without giving too much away, there's one major reveal that completely changes the whole course of the stories, and it touches every character in the film.
Yeah.
How did you tackle that turning point to keep your performance grounded and honest?
You just kind of do. You read the script, a ton of times, and you just kind of, once you've read it a ton of times and done the work and done your homework, then you kind of just go and do the thing.
I think Josh is such a fantastic director, and this is like right up his wheelhouse, but he has such a range of what he can do.
Yeah.
Talk to me about working with Josh Boone as a director on this film.
It really is great because he really knows what he wants, but he's also like a very steady, calm, cool customer, and that's what I really like in a director. I don't like a screamer.
Sure.
I like, it all starts at the top in any organization, and he leads the ship really nicely.
Now, this film is based off of Colleen Hoover's book, and her stories always hit people emotionally.
Yeah.
With Regretting You, what does it say about love, regret, and choices? The choices that we make shape who we become.
That's all we have, right? I mean, choices are everything. They have consequences, and for the good and the bad, and that's what you kind of hang your hat on. I think your choices.
Now, with the role of Chris, what did you want to bring to this role that went beyond the page, that maybe wasn't necessarily there in the script?
Like we said, there's just like an undercurrent of something that is weighing on him.
Interesting. Now, you got Wind River Rising coming up. What can you tell us about stepping into that world and what audiences can expect from that next chapter of Wind River?
It's cool. It's exciting. It's definitely, in the same vein as the first, but it expands the world, and it kind of like dives a little deeper into what's going on these reservations.
Now, for Regretting You, what are you hoping audiences take away after watching the film and letting it sit with them for a little bit?
I hope they go and have a good time. They laugh, they cry, they feel something, and it sort of affects them in a happy way.
Josh, it is great to
Yes,
see
sir.
you. This story feels like such a natural fit for you because you're so good at exploring love, loss, and family in deeply human ways.
Right.
Now, you've said that you were drawn to a story about parents and kids realizing their flaws in each other.
Yeah.
Talk to me about why Regretting You, what made it so personal to tell this story for you?
Well, it's sort of what you said. I mean, I think a lot about that moment when you're a teenager, when you realize that your parents are real people
Yeah.
and that they're fallible, that they're they're human, they have an inner life you don't know about, that they've made sacrifices for you that you don't know about, that I don't know, I think that's almost like a seminal moment for teenagers to become adults. They almost have to go through that to come out on the other side. I've always made coming-of-age films. My first movie's similar to this one in many ways because the thematic stuff, like finding out that your parents aren't who you thought they are, was a big part of my first movie. And it had a parent storyline and kid storyline, and it kind of wove through both of them. So I'd done this sort of thing before, and I just really connected to this story and these characters, and I thought Colleen, who I'd never read a book by her before, they offered it to me, so I read it.
Right.
I had seen her books everywhere, so I knew she was a hugely famous author. My daughter, who's 14, had read some of her books, and once I read the book, I questioned that. I was like, we're going to talk about this. But I really kind of made it for her in some ways. I mean, she's just 4 years younger than Mason and McKenna,
Wow.
So like they're feel like my kids in some ways. So I like to make movies for her occasionally and things that she might like. And for whatever reason, it probably would take a therapist to figure it out. Like, why do I make coming-of-age movies over and over? Why is it about parents and children? Why is it about mortality? Why is there levity and humor? I don't know. It's the one thing I seem to be decent at doing.
You're fantastic
Okay at doing it, Now, adequate.
I want to ask you about Colleen Hoover for a second, because the book has such a passionate fan base.
Yeah.
And people connect with this book so deeply.
Yeah.
Talk to me about what resonates with this book on so many different levels with so many different people.
Well, I mean, I'd say it's the same thing as why I'm excited about this movie being in theaters, because it's like, I think if you go down to like what actually matters to people, it's like their partners and their families and love and mortality and people who pass away and leave your life. And it's like, there just seems like there's really not that many movies that come out in theaters anymore that are like that. So it's like Colleen Hoover being a superstar is the biggest help to me in my mission to get movies to come out that are for teenagers in theaters, that have great music, that are about people, that have heart, and they're not so much spectacle.
Sure.
I like that stuff. I just want the variety that I had in the 90s when I was a kid. I could go see 5 movies in a weekend. They were all different.
I was just talking about this, about how I would go in the summers and watch like 5 movies in a row and do this thing. I feel like that doesn't really exist
There's not
anymore.
enough movies that come out on a weekly basis. The variety's not enough to do that. Now, there are still a ton of other movies on streaming and things being made on streaming that would have been those movies back then. But it's like, anytime we can push one through that's actually about people, it's worth trying to do it.
Absolutely. Now, you mentioned music real quick. You've always had such a distinct visual and musical language in your films. From Fault of Our Stars to Regretting You, what role did music play in the tone of this story and shaping the emotional rhythm of the story?
Well, I mean, I always, the very first thing I do before I accept a job or before I write an original screenplay or work on an adapted screenplay is I make a soundtrack. So it's the very first thing that I do. It's almost how I convince myself that I can make the movie. So what I'm looking to make is a tonal map of the movie. So there might be 5 or 6 anchor songs where I know exactly where they go, and they're in the movie now exactly as I put them in the script. And then there's a bunch of other songs that I find along the way with my music supervisor, Susan Kent, who she knows the things that I want in the movie, and she knows my taste very well because we've done everything together. And so it ends up being it starts with me, and then it ends up being a collaboration by the end. Cameron Crowe is probably one of my very favorite filmmakers. I love him with all my heart. He was kind enough to sign a copy of Fast Times at Ridgemont High that I had my agent send him back when I made Fault in Our Stars. And like, his movies meant so much to me when I was young, from Say Anything to Singles to Jerry Maguire and Almost Famous and Vanilla Sky and all that. And the way he used music meant a lot to me. And I think about like whatever, George Lucas writing in the script of American Graffiti, the songs that were on the radio on every page. And it's like, that wasn't quite as done as a stylized way, but he thought about it. And it's like, I worked at a record store for many years before I made movies, and I, have more records than you should have. But music and movies and books are sort of the biggest things in my life. So a movie is sort of the best way to funnel them all together.
That's incredible. Look, I want to switch gears for a second and ask you about The Stand.
Oh, sure.
Because I loved it. I actually just rewatched it. I think I watch it like every single year now at this point. I love it. But there's talks that there's a new version with Doug Liman that's coming out.
Yeah.
Was there something from that world that you didn't get to explore that you'd like to see explored in the new version?
Well, I only was able to make the first and last episode.
Yep.
So I wrote the first episode with Ben, who was the showrunner, and then Steve wrote the last episode for me. That was something I begged him to do because I had heard him once tell a story that he had an idea for a coda or an additional part of the stand about Fran stuck in a well. And I was like, the fuck is that about? And so I wrote him and I was like, I've heard you talk about this. Why don't you write it for us? And I still remember the day that I got that final draft file, and I was like, I'm the first person to get to read something that he wrote. And it was like, having been a lifelong fan, and he had a very big impact on me when I was a kid, and I sent some books to him, and he wrote me a letter when I was younger, and I put him in Stuck in Love, my first movie, in a cameo as himself. He always was the voice I wanted to hear the most when I opened a book.
Sure.
And his books meant so much to me, and so much of why I loved his books when I was a kid is I think why so many kids loved his books back then, because he had so many children characters. He had the kids in It, or the kids in Stand By Me, The Body, or whatever. He wrote for kids. I don't feel like in the 90s when I was growing up there was really young adult books. Sure. Kids read Stephen King books. Yeah. So he was the biggest influence on me growing up and the biggest influence on me in my adult life. He was just the kindest, best person you could meet. They say don't meet your heroes. They did not mean Stephen King.
That's true.
And so I did really enjoy making it, but I didn't get to make the whole show.
Sure.
And it originally was a movie that I was doing at Warner Brothers, and a lot of the cast from the movie came with me to do the television series. So I carried many actors with me, and again, many I've worked with many times. Nat Wolff, Greg Kinnear, a bunch of people, and a bunch of them are friends that I'd known who I'd want to put in stuff but hadn't. So I really brought the cast to the table. I brought my people, the editors and the composer, Nate Walcott, who's done all my stuff. They did all of the show, and I did a lot of music work in it, like getting Black Sabbath in the first episode and having Alex Skarsgård whistle the opening to The Stranger by Billy Joel. That's like my sprinkles that I put in it. So I enjoyed making it, but I got to make such a limited amount of it that like I always really wanted to make is it like a 3-hour movie like JFK or something, with that sort of cast, that big sprawling cast. They just were never going to make it. A 3-hour movie like that, there's just no way. So it ended up being TV. I am looking forward to the new one because I actually love Doug Liman. I fucking love Doug Liman. He's a madman. He's great. I wonder how he'll make it and what it'll be like as a feature. I'm curious to see what anybody does with it,
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too. Well, look, you did a fantastic job with it, just like you did with this film.
We all tried to do it. We tried to do something different again with the structure because I grew up watching the miniseries. So I've read the book so many times. It's just like our hope was to tell the book exactly where everything that's in the book, but to jumble the chronology in a way that would maybe make it more surprising if you were familiar with the book. And I don't know if that worked 100% or not, but we just wanted to do something different with it.
That's why I keep coming back to your version, sir. Thank you so much for your time. You're incredible,
man.
You deserve to be happy. No regrets, right?